Minimum wage is defined by the International Labour Organization (ILO) as the minimum amount of remuneration that an employer is required to pay wage earners for the works performed during a given period, which cannot be reduced by collective agreement or an individual contract. The minimum wage is one of the salary aspects that must be updated. Malaysia minimum wage for workers was last raised from RM1,100 to RM1,200 in February 2020. The federal government has been encouraged to reconsider the lowest wage hike, which does not keep pace with the growing expense of living, particularly for graduates. Senator Dr. Yaakob Safari stated that the present pay the pace of increase is limited between 100 and 150%, despite the fact that the price of living has gone from 400 to 600%. Although the country's wage rate does not reflect this effort, the 12 MP, which is 12 Malaysian Plan, continues to focus on supporting the unprivileged and Malaysia's ambition to become high-income country. In 1985, those who work for the government will receive a basic salary around RM1,060 or RM1,200 with allowance. Now, in 2021, university graduates will be paid a salary below RM2,000. They are poor, as evident by the fact that they are below the poverty line. That is why young people in the nation have been forced to relocate to another country in pursuit of better paying work due to the low wage rate. Approximately 300,000 Malaysians use the Johor Causeway to commute to work in Singapore before the COVID-19 outbreak because earning and currency value were better there. If the government is serious about improving the people economy over the next 5 years, expect the appropriate job for the right man. This issue must be given top priority so that the country's economic sector can maintain its quality, in keeping with the government's desire to bolster.
According to a federal law, a minimum wage is the lowest wage per hour that a worker can be paid. It is a legally mandated hourly wage floor below which non-exempt employees may not be offered or accept employment. The primary short-term effect, or in other words, immediate effect, is that young Malaysian workers have decided to relocate to other countries in search of a better wage and salary. Absence of vocation opening has been credited as among the many justifications for why Malaysians are deciding to move to another country to where their abilities are really esteemed and they can build a decent living. Secondly, it has the potential to diminish your work possibilities and cause unemployment. Workers miss out on the job training opportunities that would have been compensated for with lower earnings in the short term but would have resulted in greater wages in the long run. Youth who are unable to find work must rely on their family or the social welfare system for support. Aside from that, minimum wage fails to boost growth and might negatively influence disadvantageous workers during recessions. Minimum wages do not shift gross domestic product away from lower skilled businesses and towards higher skills one, and they are mainly unsuccessful in supporting the poor during both business cycle peaks and through. During economic downtowns, minimum wage induced job losses are observed to be greater.
The medium and long-term negative effect. The debate on the minimum wage is already a national issue and should be studied in depth in the interest of worker, company performance and the country economic growth as a whole. There is the medium and long-term negative effect for minimum wage. Minimum wage has a medium-term impact on the economy, which is a job separation. The short-run impact of the minimum wage are assessed using monthly data instead of yearly or quarterly data. This effect can be when there was a substantial increase in the minimum wage. Next, minimum wage will also contribute to the medium-term effect on the dire economic state of many poor and low-income families. The higher minimum wage is an effective way to improve their economy. Lastly, the medium-term effect is the wages for low-wage workers will reduce their level of consumption and in some cases will lead to lower aggregate demand. However, when wages are too low, export and investment may continue to decline and aggregate demand will fall. Minimum wages on their contemporaneous medium-term effect on teens and young adults may be displaced. The long-term effect of minimum wage is its impact on social exclusion, the risk of remaining unemployed for people with various income levels. If companies who lost their employment as a consequence of minimum wage risk had a difficult time finding work in the following years, the minimum wage law will result in significant warehouse costs. This result also indicate that raising the minimum wage affect the number of jobs available to low-skilled workers. Next, exposure to the minimum wage at a young age can lead to adverse effect and long-term effect. Among the possible long-term adverse effects are declining labor market experience and accumulation of period lower current labor supply due to lower wage and reduced training and skill acquisition. It's showing negative effect for 1 or 3 year job loser, reducing working hours and not being hired to replace leaving employee. Lastly, the negative long-term effect of being exposed to low minimum wages as a teenager are more severe for black. We evaluate the longer-term effect of minimum wage using data on minimum wage histories encountered by workers since they first entered the labor market.
Next, I will explain about the existing solution to the problem that have already been taken by the government. Malaysia implemented a minimum wage regime in 2013, which applied to all workers, excluding domestic workers. There are many solutions that they have done to solve the problem about minimum wages in this country, but not successfully. Firstly, the 12th Malaysia Plan is a comprehensive development strategy that will implement a variety of measures to guarantee long-term economic growth and a more fair distribution of opportunities and results. The plan continues to focus on aiding the poor and attempts to make Malaysia a high-income country, but the country's wage rate does not correlate with these efforts. The fact is, young workers in Malaysia have migrated to other countries in search of higher wages for their living. Secondly, the government announced a new minimum pay rate of RM1,050 in early September, an increase of RM50 from the current minimum wage rate of RM1,000. With the release of the new wage rate in the 2019 budget, it witnessed an increase of RM100 above the present minimum wage. As the government has made a decision on the minimum wage, the government must also guarantee that the employees who will earn the minimum salary do not continue to be troubled by the cost of living problem. Next, the government has attracted domestic and foreign investment capable of generating high-income jobs. As a result, getting the correct international and domestic investment into the economy is critical to create a strong job prospect for Malaysians. Industry participants are also encouraged to use automation in operation which will help improve the skill of its employees and at the same time allow them to enjoy the high salary. In conclusion, we agree that most Malaysian employees have sacrificed time and efforts to enhance their income. Unfortunately, workers' earnings are still low after 2 decades. Malaysian employees who have contributed to the national economy will be recognised with the adoption of the new minimum wage.
As we know, the definition minimum wages is an employee who is paying the minimum wages by the employer based on the work done in the certain time. For example, his wage cannot be reduced through collective agreement or individual contract. There are many more suggestions they can make for allocation and improvements to solve the minimum wages problem in the country. First of all, an individual working on the minimum wages needs to have a more comprehensive strategy in financially increasing the cost of living. This is because there are many people whose minimum wages cannot manage their living costs and eventually they become homeless. What this more comprehensive strategies means that those with the minimum wages need to wisely manage their finance to reduce poverty in our country. In addition, these minimum wages workers are also looking for more money to further increase their cost of living. They cannot rely entirely on the assistance provided by the government. This way, they will work harder to secure their finance better than even before. This can also make them for more focused employees towards them and at the same time can increase the minimum wages they earn now so as not to interfere with their cost of living. Next, those with the minimum wages can do other jobs such as making their own business, either face-to-face business or online business. Most of them do business online because at the same time they can also do a part-time work to increase the cost of living. This is because running our own business is able to financially increasing the cost of living. This does not mean that they do not have to quit their current job, but this can also lead to an increase from the minimum wages to being able to financially establish the cost of living. In conclusion, there are other suggestions that can be improved by workers in Malaysia to increase the minimum wages rate. Most workers in Malaysia have to sacrifice their time and also effort in order to increase their cost of living. In this way, they can secure their future to supplement the minimum wages that can cover the cost of living.